Hey Riz, how's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Nice.
What's news?
What's new? Loads, man. The new clinic, yeah, just coming to the end of Ramadan now as well. So just
Mhm.
loads of stuff. Where are you based now? I can see you're in a different setup as well. I saw that. What's that? Where are you at?
I'm in Exeter now. Well, just in a little town called Woodbury.
Okay.
So it's where my girlfriend grew up,
Okay. Nice.
and the plan was always to get down here at some point. So yes, we made it happen a few months ago, and
Yeah.
yes, so far so good. Like right out in nature, which is great. 10 minutes to the beach. Yeah, it's such a sweet setup. It's really good.
Beautiful, man. You've just been edging and edging further away. You went from London to
Yeah.
Bristol to outside Bristol, and now you're just in the sticks, right?
Yeah. Not quite as far out as your guest last week.
Okay.
Uh, I watched the live, your
Yeah.
last live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So such a cool guy. Seems like such a cool guy, and just like you pointed out, like put his money where his mouth is. He fully moved from North London. Was he? Did he say he was in
Yeah, I
to
think so. Yeah.
to a farm in Carmarthen? Is it the farm?
He's in Pontypool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so I should imagine he's not that far from where my family live.
Okay. Whereabouts your family?
So, well, my family are in Penarth, but obviously it's a lot, it's not far compared to, from here or
Yeah,
even
yeah,
from
yeah.
Britain.
I think it's about an hour or 40 minutes or so from. So it's not too bad because
Yeah.
if you need to be in the city, you can be in the city. But obviously, like it's the further you go up there, the roads and all that. I can remember I went up there and it was in the middle of the winter, and yeah, man, it was like literally, it was just like the terrain, like it was like driving on cliffs and just yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
we're going out there on next week. Actually, we've got a staff too, so we've got about 25 of us. Got all the staff that are with us basically,
Yeah.
um, and families and all that. So we're all going out. He's going to cook a whole lamb for us in his. We've got like an outdoor oven thing. Um,
Amazing.
so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, man.
Sounds great. One of the questions that was coming to me while you were doing the live was what livestock does he actually have?
He's got everything, man. He's got cows. He's really fond of his cows. Actually, he's got like a really close relationship. He told me a really touching story. That's why I said I wanted to have him on again. He told me a story about when he slaughtered his cow there, and he said he slaughtered his cow, and he said he just sat on the floor just weeping, just crying and crying because do you know what I mean? The connection he had with that animal,
Yeah.
and it's quite interesting as well because obviously one of the things he says is and kind of I think maybe we're going to touch upon some of this as well because obviously there's a whole kind of vegan movement and argument and all that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
But the connection he described having with his animals
Yeah.
and that kind of emotional impact of it, number one, and how much love he has for his animals. And
Hmm.
number two as well is that a lot of the times where he slaughtered his animals, he slaughtered them because he's had to,
Yeah.
because, for example, they were ill or they were going to die anyway, type of thing. So
Hmm.
he had a goat which he slaughtered as well when I went up there actually. Well, a couple of days before when I went up there, and he was telling me as well. He was like, "Yeah, the whole family's really sad because the goat was ill and it wasn't getting better, and they had to do this and do that, and they gave it everything. They gave it a few shots, whatever they could do, and he was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I just returned for the worst, so then I had to slaughter it." Because obviously, if he slaughters it, he can eat it. Whereas, if he just lets it die, then, you
Yeah.
know, um, it's like when it comes to halal meat as well, for example, if the animal dies, then you can't eat it. Whereas if you slaughter it while it's ill, it's kind of okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was. He's got all sorts, man. He's got everything you'd expect on a farm. I can't remember him having any pigs, but then maybe as a Muslim he wouldn't. But then
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with keeping pigs if you're a Muslim, just as long as you don't eat them. He's got he,
Yeah.
he's got dogs, and dogs are not halal either. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
No,
yeah,
I think that's a bit looked down upon in the British culture, eating dogs.
yeah.
Eating dogs.
You know,
Um,
saying that an interesting thing. I don't know if you've seen, but I worked on horses not long ago. with cupping and with the grassland techniques and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I worked with a friend of mine, basically, who her daughter's an athlete, a jiu-jitsu athlete. And, you know, they both train quite actively. I know them from our jiu-jitsu club. So I was looking after her daughter in terms of providing treatment and stuff and in her recovery and things. And I got in conversation with her mum. And her mum was saying that she looks after, she rehabs horses, right? And horses get, you know, they get back pain and they get all of these problems. And often they get put down because if they sit down, they don't get up. And if they're ill or if they can't, you know, if you can't ride them, it's kind of like, what's the point in having them? The expense exceeds the thing. And then she was saying she has to pay £500 for them to get shot, right? Basically, and get the carcass taken away. But yeah, you know, she was like, I just don't see why we just can't eat them.
Yeah.
And again, like in like the Arab traditions and in kind of the Islamic culture, it's not a common thing, but it's allowed. It's like it's a permitted thing. But I think in the UK, I don't know if it's allowed here or not, or what the situation is. But
I'm
there's
not
something.
sure. I've never seen horse on the menu anywhere in the UK, but it's not uncommon in certain places in Europe.
In France, France, it's common. Yeah, it's a common thing. But yeah, it's just interesting because obviously, like we've got all of these, you know, ideas of how, you know, we're being kind to animals. But then on the flip side, you know, in reality, we're not. You know, where would a vegan sit with that? You know, putting down a horse because it's not, you know, it's not feasible to keep it alive financially.
Yeah, one of the sort of compelling arguments against that point, and I think with often case with people that following a vegan diet, I've got a lot of respect for them where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Because I hate animal cruelty. I hate factory farming. I think factory farming should stop. I'm sure you're going to say exactly the same thing. But at the same time, for me personally, I feel that like human beings, that's part and parcel of life, right? Eating animals eat animals, humans eat animals, and I think one of the points that often gets overlooked by some people in the vegan community is the fact that when you're monocropping, you know, fruit and vegetables and all these things, thousands of animals are dying in that process. You know, you see the images of the big sort of, I don't know what the machines are called, but going across the fields and they're churning up all the corn, etc., etc. And you've got to think, you know, what's dying there in terms of rabbits and other, you know, smaller animals that would be living amongst the crops. And then also, you know, where do you draw the line? Because you've got insects and stuff like that, and these monocrops are having pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and everything used really heavily on them. Well, you know, that's killing off insects as well. So it's like, where's that line drawn? But it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, we just got in the comments, Turkey has horse meat on the menu. Nice. That's what I'm having when next time I go to Turkey. But all right, cool. So I think there's a few things that I wanted to touch upon today. I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit because we're getting into this discussion of obviously kind of the carnivore diet and all that kind of stuff. And obviously you're massively into that. And to be honest, I'm not kind of with my own particular understanding. I kind of see that I kind of feel like I find it best like when we cycle the way we eat, right? Rather than being kind of too extreme in one thing or another. But like, even if you look at it practically or realistically on a level, like if you lived back in the day and you're a hunter gatherer, if you did slaughter an animal, right, if you did, catch an animal and slaughter it, you're going to have meat for a while, right? So you're going to need to be eating a pretty carnivorous diet for quite a period. And then if there was periods then where, you know, there was scarcity of the meat, whatever it was, or animals, then you'd be on a different type of diet in between, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you take that ancestral viewpoint, you know, it's only in the last few hundred years that we've had access to, you know, to food more readily. We would have gone through periods of the year where it would have gotten really cold, especially, you know, in this part of the world, in the UK, in parts of Europe, and then sort of the northern equator as well. And you would have become like nomadic tribes, right? You would have traveled purely to hunt meat. because that would have been your only food source. Because when the ground would have frozen, you wouldn't have had access to fruit and vegetables. It just, you know, they just wouldn't have. So that would have been your only option. And because of that, it seems to me that our biology is set up to eat that way. You know, thousands and thousands of years of eating, becoming for certain parts of the year. Generally, you'd probably have a higher carb diet in the summer when there was more carbs readily available. And then as the weather got cold, your diet would have turned more into a ketogenic with lower and lower carbs. And then during the coldest months, you would have probably had a carnivorous diet. And, you know, that plays into the concept that you've talked about in terms of cycling in nutrition. That's what I do personally as well. You know, in the summer, I'll eat a higher carb diet. I still never really go high carb. Like high carb for me is around about 150 grams. But then I tend to drop to 100 or even as low as 50 grams during the winter months, depending on like the level of training. And that kind of ties in with other things as well. Like studies have shown that your ability to process carbohydrates is better when your vitamin D levels are higher. So that ties into the fact that in the summer, you know, the sun's out, you're getting more vitamin D, the vitamin D in your body's higher, and then you've got this greater ability to handle carbs. So I really think that ancestral approach to eating and also cycling your sort of diet in that way kind of just matches up with how our biology is designed to eat. And as a result, personally, I feel a lot better following that sort of approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important just to have a game plan and some kind of discipline around the way you're eating in general, because obviously so many people just, and I think one of the things I would say is, especially when dealing with patients on a day-to-day basis, whether I'm dealing with everyday people or whether I'm dealing with kind of, you know, high-end kind of athletes and things like that, is there's a lot of confusion around it and people don't know what to follow. And, you know, as the saying goes, you know, if you stand for nothing, you know, you fall for, you know, if you don't stand for anything, you fall for, you know, you stand for nothing, you fall for anything, right? Yeah. So in a sense, when it comes to nutrition, and, you know, you see an advert saying, you know, this is the, you know, sugar-free, or, you know, this is a healthier version, or diet, whatever, you know, I mean, whatever it is, people get really kind of caught up in all of that stuff. So you need to have your principles where you stand from. And I think that aligns with a lot of what I do, and the basis of everything that we run in terms of our clinics and our practices is that it all goes back to a kind of a core foundation of, okay, what are my belief systems, what are my ethics, what are the foundations of health? Mm-hmm. And then we build up from there, and we start with our belief systems, really. And then, you know, that expresses itself further and further. When you have set belief systems, you clearly realize that, okay, this is kind of suitable for me, or this isn't. This is in line with me, or this isn't. So you can kind of make your way through your decisions very clearly once you have a foundational system or structure to work from. And you can say that in so many aspects of life. You can say that in terms of your career. You can say that in terms of your health. You can say that in terms of your religious beliefs and so forth. You know, with me, I follow a religious structure as a Muslim, and it's like, okay, well, I'm a Muslim, so pork's off the menu for me. You know, alcohol is off there for me. You know, smoking is not allowed, or whatever, you know, however it is, you know, but I've grown up with a structure, you know, from about the age of 14, when I kind of decided to kind of practice this kind of lifestyle, I guess, as a Muslim. Then I followed that, and it made life a lot easy. It made life very easy for me. You know, I'm 36 at the moment. You know, I married when I was 19. I've got 5 kids. You know, I had a plan, right? And all of that stemmed from having a clear definition of what my structure was when I was younger. And like I said, that started off at a young age. And I had a plan of where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and, you know, what I expected of myself almost. So yeah, I think that principle is applicable in so many ways.
Yeah, for sure. And you're kind of lucky in a way, right? Because religion has guided you on that path. Well, I think so many people in the UK, especially like Western culture, they haven't got that guiding, you know, anything to help guide them in one direction or another. And this is kind of one thing that I always promote to people, is like tapping in and experimenting for yourself and like building your own framework. Because I feel like so many people just kind of walk through life without ever creating that. And like you said, when that's not created, it's like every decision's a big decision because you've got no framework from which to operate.
I think I was going to say, I think there's a certain element of culture, or our culture, that comes into this, because and when I say our culture, like, I was born in the UK, you know, I grew up with my stepdad, Martin, you know, I wasn't brought up in a religious household at all. And I think that lack of religion is what drew me to the structure of it. Yeah. Because, you know, we live in a society, and we live in, and I think, you know, this idea, actually, not just with religion, but with health, with science, with so many things, is that we've been brought up in an era of what I would say, we call it an era of information, but I would say we call it an era of arrogance, because what we've done is we've wiped clean everything that was on the table from before, saying anything traditional, anything kind of, you know, ancestral, anything that's been passed down is all junk. Yeah. And only what science can prove today is what I'm going to go by. Yeah. And you know, that arrogance to think that, you know, only the things that I know and understand are real and everything else is bogus is a real dumb thing to do if you think about it. Yeah. Because we pride ourselves in this scientific basis and in this concept of, you know, evidence-based, and, you know, if the research says it, and it's not even if the research says it, because most of the people who speak like that and say, oh, there's no evidence for it, you know, have no clue of the scientific process and really don't understand science itself. And if they truly did, you know, there's a saying that they say is that, you know, the more fruits a tree holds, the lower it comes to the ground. Meaning that the more knowledge you have, the more humble you become, right? So that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So I think we're rooted in an era of this kind of this arrogance where we know so little and we think we know so much that we deject everything around us. But if you took this back to, you know, the time you said, look, if you took this back to, you know, where we were maybe 100 years ago, in Europe, even in the Middle East, and even in you know, my parents come from Kenya. Our bloodline comes from India originally, but even in those days, right? So if you didn't follow, or take the desert for example, if you didn't follow the traditions, right? So you have traditions which are passed down by generations and generations, right? And you're told, okay, you know, before you go to bed, you pat your bed down 3 times, right? And that's something you do because you were told to do it. Now, or you get told, you know, something else, whatever it is, a tradition, right? Now, if you don't follow that tradition when you're in the desert, you die, right? Because the only option is you could follow the tradition and follow what everyone else has done and survive, or you could take a risk and try saying, well, maybe I think I know better. I think following this path is better, and I'll find water myself this way, rather than following the beaten track which I've been taught by my ancestors. And the alternative to taking the risk is survival. Sorry, taking the risk means potential death. So you see, if you look at it in that sense, if you look at like nomadic people, or you look at this culture of, you know, having ancestral knowledge and wisdom passed down, you know, there's a certain element to it where you can say, well, you know, there's respect for that knowledge. And when we take this in the context of medicine, so in what, as you probably know, with what I do, I've learned what you would class as the conventional understanding of medicine, and I apply traditional practices to that understanding. So, you know, we're taught, okay, you know, this is how the body works, and this is what we understand, and this is what, you know, you could say science has taught us. But then in the way that we treat people, we throw everything out the window, and we say, oh, well, anything other than drugs and surgery is just rubbish, right? It's all folk tales, it's all wives' tales, it's all placebo. And we have this concept that, you know, this is all rubbish. When in reality, you know, what we're throwing away is those thousands of years of knowledge and wisdom, you know, practices that, you know, you can find in hieroglyphics is what we practice in our clinics, right? Right. This is the basis of it. It's the oldest thing known to mankind. And I can remember reading this book once. I think it was called, I can't even remember the name. I think it was called Maggots. bloodletting and something else, right? It was talking about old and ancient practices. And they had this concept saying that medicine has, or medicinal practices have like an evolutionary process in terms of the survival of the fittest. So if there's a practice, for example, like bloodletting, which is one of the techniques we use, and obviously you've had done, we've done for you as well, right?
Yeah, that works. I'm living proof.
Yeah, so you know, this technique, for example, you know, it'll be passed down generation by generation, and it you know, one of the reasons why it stays in the tradition is because it works, right? And if it didn't, it would be left behind, right? So there's even like the concept of survival of the fittest, even when it comes to medicinal practices.
Yeah, and I think in years gone by as well, you know, they wouldn't have. There's no room for stuff that doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
there was so much less room for trial and error and, oh, will this work? Because there was no safety net back then like there is now. And I think what you made such a good point then, it's like we live in a culture now of like scientific materialism. And if there isn't a double-blind, placebo-controlled study to prove something, then people just don't believe it's true. But I always use the example of grounding, right? So like I love cold water immersion. It's one of my favorite practices, and my favorite way to do it is out in nature. So sea, river, you know, whatever. And that makes you feel better, guaranteed, right? You've had a tough day at the office, you drive to the sea, you jump in, and you have to be in there 10 seconds. You can literally dive in and get out. And it's like all those emails and all the bullshit from the day is just washed away. And I'm like, there's no studies to, you know, demonstrate that that's good for you. But you don't need the study. You just go and do it for yourself. And someone made the point to me the other day. They said about wanting to check. They didn't want something to be working for them. Something was working for them, but they wanted to stop doing it anyway, just to make sure it wasn't a placebo. And this concept to me is like, the goal is for, you know, X, Y, or Z to happen. If that's happening because of whatever you're doing, or because of the placebo effect, does it matter? Because it's achieving the goal. And we live in a world where people are so afraid of being hoodwinked that they'll shoot themselves in the foot.
You know, the thing is, and that's a very good point, right? That the goal is you know, the result is the goal, right? It's not necessarily, you know, trying one thing. And again, this is one of the methods that we use, is we use an integrative approach, right, in our clinics, right? So, you know, the idea is that, you know, using one therapy using more than one therapy can be more beneficial than just using one alone, right? So the concept that we've kind of coined effectively, you go to a clinic and you have acupuncture because they do acupuncture, or you go to a clinic and you have physio exercises because they do physio exercises. You go somewhere and you have chiropractic adjustments because that's what they do, right? So everyone who comes in, they just have that one thing. Whereas, you know, when you truly understand how the body works, you recognize that it works in so many different ways and there's so many different facets to it that, you know, you have to question what caused your problem in the first place. And what you realize, it's a multitude of things. It was the fact that you were overstressed, that your body wasn't healing as well, and, you know, you maybe your nutrition wasn't perfect, and, you know, you bent over and you cranked your back, right? So there's multiple factors involved in it. So what makes you think that there's just one solution, right? That the answer to your problem. So, you know, if you look at it, you know, if you even look at it from the concept of high blood pressure or systemic, you know, conditions, you say, okay, well, you know, what drug will fix my problem? Yeah. Like, you're looking for one isolated thing. And this is the reductionist approach, right? Is you're looking for breaking it down and saying, okay, what is the one thing which is going to cure me? And we're always looking for that blue pill or whatever it is. It's just like, okay, you know what? You know, give me the one solution that's going to fix my problem. Will this cure that? Does this cure this? And even when you know, the modalities that we use, I always explain to people that this isn't going to cure your problem. This is one piece of the puzzle. So if you recognize that the pathomechanics of your condition has been caused by multiple factors, you need to utilize multiple factors to correct the cause of your problem. Yeah. So, you know, this is an approach where, yeah, you have to use multiple things in. But going back to what you said about, you know, trying to prove everything from a scientific basis. You know, when I don't know if you've seen my BBC interview when I was interviewed by a pharmacological professor when I was asked about cupping therapy. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen, but you've told me about it before, so I've got like a vague idea of what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got it on our YouTube channel anyway. If any of you guys want to check that out. But yeah, I was interviewed on BBC News, live on BBC News. And, you know, there was a professor who was saying, you know, there's no evidence for it and everything. And to be honest, I held my shit together because I felt like literally there was just boiling, and I felt like just bursting, right? And just cursing this old geezer, right? Yeah. Who, I didn't really know of him. Like he knew about me, and he knew he was going to go into a debate. I had no clue who I thought I was going to do a demonstration, right? And they chucked this guy on me, and we started having this kind of conversation, or debate rather. But one of the responses I literally had in the back of my mind, which I thought I could just go out with this, but then I just held myself back because it was inappropriate. But it was like, mate, there's no evidence to say that wiping your ass is good for you, right? You know, do you still do it? You know, and the answer is, of course you do, right? But, you know, we're getting silly to the point where, you know, we're getting all the way to the point where, you know, there's things which are just so obvious. Yeah. And then you get coming out, you know, like with cupping and the techniques that we use. He's like, oh, you know, what is that going to do? He's like, well, you can see there's some physiological changes happening, right? Mm-hmm. You can see there's a suction, you know, there's suction on the skin, there's a change in pressure, there's all of these different things happening. You don't have to be a genius to recognize that we're actually making a physiological impact to the body, and there is something that's going on. But you get so many things just blown off saying, you know, it's just placebo.
But that's what drives me mad, is because, like, you know, like you said, I've had the blood cutting done by yourself, and so just to tell the story behind that, I had like a hematoma in my calf, went to A&E, they told me I was going to be on crutches for 6 to 8 weeks. You came over the following day, blood cupping on my calf. The following day I felt like I'd been hit by a car. The day after that I was walking. The day after that I was in the gym. 6 days later I was in the squat rack. So I'd gone, you know, basically a 6-day turnaround when I was told I was going to be on crutches for 6 to 8 weeks as a result of the blood cupping. Now, for me, I know that works. I've experienced it. It's worked for me. That's a tick in the box. If I, you know, have another injury again, I'd go and get it done again. People are unwilling to even try it. You know what I mean? Just expect. That's the beauty of, like, Tim Sheaf, right? Friend of both of ours. That's one of the things I admire so much about Tim. His life is a self-experimentation, everything he does, right? And it's like, we need to adopt more of that mindset in just like the population at large, where you see something like, right, well, I'm going to go experiment and find out if that works for me personally. Whereas at the moment, it's like you said, it's like people need to see a scientific paper. And, you know, like, you know, it's so easy to, you know, I saw a sketch the other day. This guy said they wanted to prove something, and they brought a scientist in, and he said, oh, no, all the data says something else. And he turned around to his boss, and he was like, oh, we can't do it then. He's like, I'll bring another scientist in, they'll say the exact opposite. You know what I mean? They'll just mock up the next paper.
You know, what you said there is so key, because, you know, in religion, as a Muslim, right, we have scholars, right, and they say there's scholars for dollars, right? There's this saying that they have, right, is that if you want to do something in your religion which isn't allowed, you just go and find a scholar and pay him, and he'll tell you that it's allowed, and he'll create an argument for you to kind of to say that it's permissible or it's something which is within our faith, right? And we call it scholars for dollars, right? Now we got the same thing, and this is where, you know, I've got on my own personal profile, I actually wrote this small little kind of post which likens the current situation we're in right now to a religion, to a dogmatic religion, because you said we're being programmed from a school level, and, you know, I homeschool my kids for that reason. Is that we're being programmed from when we're in school to have this, and it's not to have a critical thinking mind. We're actually programmed to just respect authority. That, okay, if this guy has Dr. on his name, or if he's got PhD on his name. And often if he doesn't, right, just if he's got power, like at the moment, you know, Bill Gates, you know, the you know, light shines out of his ass at the moment, the way people go on about him and how he's, you know, out to kill the world. But we, you know, have this concept where we look at, you know, the social norms and how everyone's, you know, conforming and following something, and we follow suit. And that's what we're taught to do. You know, this is the structure that we have. And as you said, you know, you can bring another scientist who can give another opinion, and you know, whatever you want, you know, they'll put it out that way. And it becomes very, you know, it becomes very dangerous when you don't allow yourself to think. And, you know, as a Muslim, you know, one of the things I know in our religious books and in the Quran, it constantly says, God constantly says, Allah says, you know, do you not think? Do you not ponder? Do you not question? Do you not, you know, and he's speaking to everyone in this, right? So, you know, I don't want to make this like a religious thing, right? But basically, you know, what I'm saying is that your religion should teach you to question.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the reason why, you know, as I said, I didn't grow up as a Muslim effectively. I didn't grow up following a religion or following, you know, the religion of Islam. But I went to that conclusion. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to follow, because this makes sense to me. And I want to answer those questions. So in the same way, when we go to life, when we go to, you know, like you said, like a technique, and this is how I came across hijama, or blood cupping, right? Is that I thought, I knew from traditions, I discovered it through traditions. It was a practice that was done for thousands of years. It was a practice that was done by the ancient Egyptians. It was a practice that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did himself. So we knew from those traditions that this was something that was prevalent and was something that was adhered to by many people, not just Arabs or Muslims or anything like that. This was done by Africans. You know, I've been to literally in the jungle in East Africa, and you know, I found people using this technique. I've been to China and I've seen people using this technique. I've been to India and I've seen traditional people using this technique. They don't know what they're doing. They literally have no clue what they're doing, but they just know how to do it, and they know it helps. You know, I've got patients who are Russian and who are Polish who are like, oh yeah, I know that. That's called bunkie. We do it in our culture. My grandmother used to do this. Yeah. Right? So it's like, okay, so there's something there, right? Universal knowledge. And what our job is to do is then to question it and try to understand it. So rather than saying, okay, I don't understand this, it must be bullshit. You know, our approach needs to be, okay, I don't understand this, but I need to learn how it works. Yeah. So what we've done, and you know, and I'm not sure if you know as well, but we've published scientific literature on the topic as well, at hijama. And we recently published that after a long, long time. It was well overdue, but we recently published some scientific literature on it. So we're out there and we're getting it out in the kind of scientific literature. That's, you know, I always say to people, that's not the purpose of our organization. You know, our purpose isn't to convince people who are, you know, who are the unconvincible that this works, because I believe that we're up against a machine. And, you know, that's not the objective. The objective is to help people just utilize and actually have this as an option and as something that they can benefit from. But basically, our approach was, okay, from what I understand of science, from my understand of, you know, of the mechanisms of therapeutic effect, of, you know, deep tissue physiology, let me break this down. Let me try and understand how this is working, because it is. Yeah. So let me come up with a hypothesis to try and justify and try and understand how it works, rather than work in a way where I completely disregard something and then wait for someone to give me funding to decide what I'm going to question. Because ultimately, that's what it is, isn't it? That's the world we live in. Yeah. So yeah, it's insane. And obviously, you know, there's so many facets to this approach. And, you know, don't get me wrong, we get people within our own profession, within our own practices, even in alternative medicine, even in religion as well, who come from a dogmatic approach, right? They come and they're like, okay, this is it. They don't question why. They don't want to know why. And they just say, this is it. And they disregard everything else. And I know there's people out there who, you know, who practice coupling and they do the stuff that we do, but they do it in a sense that, okay, this is going to cure everything. They don't want to understand why. They don't need to understand why. They just say, this is going to cure you. We're just going to do it. And that's it. And, you know, even though you could say, all right, maybe that is an approach, and it's better than, you know, not doing it at all. Yeah. But, you know, you get the best of both worlds when you start to understand things, because then you can apply that same principle universally. And this is why, you know, we stock your products in our clinic, right? Why? Because exactly the same thing. Because it's like, okay, you know what? using mushrooms and using, you know, these you know, supplements, MCT, whatever it is, right? Using these things has benefit. We're going to try and understand how. And when we do start to question, it all starts to become clear, and it just all meshes together. And it's just like, okay, this is the puzzle, and this is how it all fits together. And, you know, this is ultimately, as human beings, that's, you know, that's what makes us different to animals, right? We're here to try and understand, right? We've got the ability to comprehend.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that you're doing that you're publishing the scientific literature, because unfortunately, like we've spoken about, a lot of people need that to be able to then go explore. And like, if that's something that you guys are doing, and as a result of you publishing that, people can read that and go, oh, actually, I'm going to give this a go. Whereas if that didn't exist, they wouldn't give it a go. And then they can experience it and realize it works for themselves. And then that validates, you know, ancient knowledge. You know, you say this is something from the past, we've brought into the future, we've validated it through science to show that it works, these are the mechanisms, and we're now, you know, using it, and, you know, for however long it's been on the planet. And still the same, it's the same with some examples from nutrition, you know, with like nuts and seeds and these things that have phytonutrients in them. Our ancestors would have soaked these to get the phytonutrients out. You know, you soak say a bowl of almonds in water with a little bit of citrus, it breaks down the phytonutrients. Now that's something that's stopped happening in modern society, and you're seeing gut problems left, right and centre. And now they're, you know, starting to look into this. They're realising that, you know, there was a reason they did all this soaking. It's because it breaks down the phytonutrients, it makes it more easily digestible. And you're starting to see people that are at the forefront of holistic health and who really care about their health starting to reintroduce these practices. So I find that sort of stuff, just, I find it fascinating when you've got something that our ancestors developed, you know, hundreds, thousands of years ago, with no understanding of the scientific method as we know it today. They just developed it through trial and error or intuition or however it came about. And then, you know, it kind of got pushed by the wayside. And then we realized, no, actually, they knew exactly what they were doing. And then we brought it back around. So, yeah, I think that's so cool you're doing that.
Yeah. But I think that approach of, like I said, just trying to understand, because I'm sure, you know, there may be things that have been passed down through generations, which, you know, maybe we don't align with 100% and not 100% perfect or accurate or, you know, even beneficial, right? There may be some things that have been carried along the way. However, I think there's a few things which I think are quite interesting. And this is one of the things we teach in our courses and the programs that we have, is that if you want to know what truly heals, then look around the world and look at all of the independent kind of cultures and civilizations, and go and look at their systems of medicine. Go and look at Ayurveda, go and look at traditional Chinese medicine, go and look at, you know, Galenic medicine, go and look at Arab medicine, go and look at the Aztecs, what do they use? You know, all of these different places. And what you find is that they overlay, even though they were independent, you know, often it's in places, isolated tribes and civilizations. They all practiced effectively the same systems of medicine. They used bloodletting, they used herbs, they used mushrooms, they used nutrition, they used purging, they used spiritual techniques in many cases, right? And all of these things, you know, are universal. So not one of them was missing any of these. Like, you know, if I was to say to you, and this is one thing I love, and this is why, you know, I'm passionate about hijama and blood cupping and the technique, because anywhere you go in the world, there's a name for the technique in their local language, right? You know, hijama, bunki, janja, you know, there's so many, you know, tobin, there's so many words for it. And I've got this hobby of literally, anytime I meet someone who speaks a different language, I say to him, okay, what is this called? And if they don't know about it, I say, look, go and ask, you know, your grandparents, go and find out, you know, do they know of this technique and what is it called? And 99.9, I've never had someone who's ever said to me, this is completely foreign. They say, oh yeah, we know this, you know, in Greek, kapas, you know, there's so many different terms for it. So in the same way, in anything, like, for example, massage is universal. You don't need scientific research to tell you that, okay, you know what, a massage is you know, beneficial for your health, and it can help you. And you don't need anyone to tell you that. You don't need to have that proven to you. But yeah, it's crazy that we live in a world where, you know, I think what is quite crucial is that we're quite, you know, we are blessed with knowledge, right? We have sophisticated scientific approaches and methodologies. We have, you know, technologies, all these things which help us advance and enhance our understanding. And we've got, you know, like in our organization, we've got people who have background in medical, you know, as medical doctors. I'm a chiropractic doctor. We've got PhD doctors. We've got people who've got, you know, masters in research and these various things. And we utilize these individuals, and they are gems when you find them. But they only become gems when you detach them from the system, which is a system which is, you know, obviously a capitalistic driven system that is just out there to profit on our sickness, unfortunately.
I think that's one of the cool things you're doing at your clinic. Is like, you know, you've got a variety of practitioners, and like you were saying earlier, you know, you often, someone will go to, you know, they'll pull their back or whatever, and they'll go to a chiropractor, and it's like a hammer and nail situation. Like, whoever you go to think they can treat you through their modality. You never get the chiropractor going, actually, now you need to be going to a massage therapist for this. You know, whereas someone walks into your clinic and you can assess them and go, right, who are they best to see? So I think that's a really cool thing about what you guys do. And also the holistic approach you take in terms of, like you're saying, you know, modern medicine looks at, you know, what pill can we give you to combat the symptoms you're having. They're never looking at root cause. So someone might come into your clinic and, you know, they've pulled their back, and you might do cupping on them, or you might use, like you said, an integrative approach where you use a few different modalities, but you're also talking to them about, right, well, how did you get here in the first place? What's your diet like? What's your sleep habits like? How's your stress management? And giving them, and just sort of talking them through, right, well, you can maybe implement some more holistic practices. You know, say you have someone come in who's super stressed out and they've got injured because of, you know, how much tension they're carrying in their body, where you can speak to them about breathwork practices or meditation practice. And by them employing that, then that means they're not going to be coming back through the door again in 3 or 6 months' time. You know,
100%. The idea, that 100%, that's the idea. Our job and our approach is to educate people, you know, and that's our job, and help enlighten people and understand, you know, and take ownership. And again, this is another thing where we've been reliant on other people to help us get better. You know, I've had patients who came, you know, I've seen, and I've asked them, you know, how their sugar levels are, you know, when they said that they were, you know, they were possibly diabetic, their sugar levels weren't controlled in the past. You know, are you, you know, how are your sugar levels? Are they controlled? They go, well, I don't know. I had a test for diabetes and I'm not sure what the results were. I'm like, okay, how come? And they were like, oh, because they didn't call me back. And it's like, hang on a sec, you're like 2 months from that date. Right? You could be damaging your kidneys right now. There could be all this stuff going on. But you thought that it's someone else's responsibility. It's like you're outsourcing the responsibility. You know, and this approach, again, is not the way we should be. You know, it should be, we're in control of our health. And this is the whole concept as well, you know, and we can go into it, we can really open the can here if we want to go into talking about, you know, vaccinations and informed choice and all of these concepts, right? But the idea is that you should be making informed decisions yourself. You should be trying to understand, because you are the one who's responsible. If you get a shot and you become, you know, and you become damaged as a result, is that your responsibility or someone else's, right? It's your responsibility, because you are supposed to take an informed decision, and vice versa. You know, if it's the other way around, and okay, you know, you don't take it, okay, and you know, is there going to be consequences and things like that? Because I can't, you know, I have to be very careful the way I talk here, right? Because I'm not allowed to swing either way, because I have legislation on me, even under the chiropractic regulation, that doesn't allow me to express my opinion. So I have to say that it could be dangerous not taking a vaccine. Wink, wink. But you know, this is where, you know, where we stand in that. So yeah, it's a real important thing that, and you said here that, you know, people don't need to come back to us. The concept that we have actually, again, is different as well. So I'm almost correct you in that, because our approach is that we encourage people to focus on, you know, wellness care as opposed to sickness care.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about breaking down and coming to see someone when you need fixing, right? It's coming for a regular service, right? We service our watch, even we service our boiler, we service our car. You know, everything gets serviced, right? But when it comes to your physical health and your physical body, you know, we don't have that on the agenda. There's no reminder for that. Okay, you know what? I haven't had a service of my body. I haven't had a holistic kind of checkup and a kind of just see how I'm doing type of thing, top me up type of situation. Yeah. You know, I'm good. I want to get a little bit better type of approach. Yeah. You know, our philosophy is that health is like, you know, you're riding a bike up a hill. The moment you stop pedaling and trying to get better, you're rolling back down. There's no brakes on this bike. It's a fixie, right? Yeah. This is the way we roll. So, you know, we have, you know, what we call wellness care. So if you don't have any health issues at all, we recommend you coming in. We'll assess your ranges of motion. We'll assess your function. We'll take a detailed understanding of how your body's functioning. Yeah. And we'll give you a lowdown of where you are right now, what direction you're facing in. We'll give you some feedback on, you know, if things are going positive, if there's areas of improvement, and if there is, where you should be pedaling and how you should be moving forward with that. And we, you know, our approach is, and our aim is to touch base with people, you know, once a month, once every couple of months in that way, as maintenance care, rather than waiting for an episode or a situation to you know, arise where your body breaks down and, you know, you're in trouble and you have to, you know, as they say, out of choice rather than necessity.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. So one of my teachers, Paul Check, that's what he says. It's like health becomes your number one priority at some point in your life. You can either make it your number one priority on your own terms right now and do the type of things you're talking about, or it's going to blindside you later and you're going to be lying in a hospital bed somewhere wishing you would have done it. And that's the other thing on cost as well. It's like when I speak to people about, you know, eating organic food and grass-fed meat and all this sort of stuff, it's so expensive. I'm like, this is an investment in your future. This is you making sure you don't have a chronic disease when you are in your 60s and 70s. This is making sure you don't have some sort of neurodegenerative issue. This is you investing in your health later in life and also in the present moment. You know, like when people eat that way, you know, generally body composition, clarity of mind, you know, emotional control, all these things are improved. So, you know, not only improving your life now, you're improving your life. You know, you're putting money in the bank for later years.
There's actually scientific studies on that. There's actually papers on that from the perspective of chiropractic maintenance models of care. So chiropractic does have a maintenance model. So, you know, the true essence of chiropractic, to be honest, I think is a beautiful one. And it's one that aligns with all of these principles. Where we've got to today with chiropractors and chiropractic and the way it operates today is quite far from that. But again, it all aligns, as I said, if we go back to traditional medicine, naturopathic approaches, it all aligns with the same concept. And yeah, as I said, there's actually papers that show that it's much more cost effective to have maintenance care rather than breakdown care. And, you know, there's actually, this is something which we haven't done, but, you know, it's something which we could easily do. We could literally, you know, approach corporate companies and say, look, you've got all of these workers and you've got all of these people. We can guarantee that you're going to reduce down your sickness costs if you start investing in wellness costs, right? And again, it's like
optimal performance as well. Like the functionality of that person is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, and you know, if more companies really took the you know, approach with this, there are some companies that have, but if more companies took the approach with this, you know, in terms of productivity, forget your 60s and 70s investing for them. You know, you're investing for the next year or two, and in the era that we live in today, you know, the number of people who I see really struggling with their health on a day-to-day basis, who are our age, right? Yeah. You know, who are not old, who are not, you know, in that category where, you know, and I don't believe in the word old. Like, there's no such thing as that. And if you see some of our lives in the past, you know, I mentioned that. But, you know, there's this, you know, in the time where you would expect potentially to have kind of illnesses and things coming in. You know, these are people who are much, much younger than that who end up having these sorts of things. And one thing I like, and, you know, I'm really happy to, you know, you know, now it's just a week now until we, you know, officially open our doors for our clinic in Bristol. So we just started taking bookings and stuff for that. So, yeah, I'm really happy that I find that there's a little bit of a different kind of spin to some of the people here in Bristol. That there is a little bit more of an awareness of this concept, and I don't know why. I don't know historically why. Maybe because there's been a lot of outside influences in Bristol, and maybe there's been a lot of trade kind of internationally and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where it roots from, but I find that the people here in Bristol are a little bit more kind of open to that idea, and they're more, they think they're thinking outside the box a little bit more than those people who are just like, okay, what drug do I take for this illness, or what surgery can be done for my problem type of thing.
I would agree with that. I'd say that Bristol is one of the more health conscious cities I've lived in, although some of it is potentially misinformed, sort of like health ideas, but that's a conversation for another time. Where's the clinic, Chris?
So we're on Willway Street, so we're just right by Sweatbox Gym.
Okay, nice, perfect location.
Yeah, so we were quite keen on trying to find a location that has parking and is quite central. So Bristol's definitely a different ballgame when it comes to costings and the property and all that stuff. And we took a long time. To be honest, I've been in Bristol now almost 3 years, and since stepping foot into Bristol, I've just been keeping my eyes open, looking for a space. Not in a rush. We found this spot. It's not a huge place. So in Leicester, we've got like a 3-story clinic, and we've got so much space, and we've got everything around us. Whereas this space is a little bit, it's quite a bit smaller, but it's quite centrally located. We've got some parking and stuff as well, which is quite convenient. And yeah, we're really close to Sweatbox Gym and some other cool places. So yeah, really happy for the location. Yeah,
that's great. They've just opened another gym right there as well, Wild Box, which is a collaboration between Sweatbox and Wild Wolves, the yoga studio in town. So that could be like a really good link for you as well, because their clients and Sweatbox's clients are really likely to want to use your clinic. So
I think we're gonna. I love spending time in networking with other kind of like-minded organizations and businesses and stuff. And when we get a bit of time, I've been scatterbrained at the moment, just getting all of this ready. We're well over schedule. We're supposed to actually open in April. So been just running around, just trying to get things finished up. But it's finally taking shape, and yeah, we're taking our first bookings. We've got a bit of a soft launch going on at the moment. We've got a couple of people here and there, kind of friends and family coming in at the moment. But we're taking kind of official bookings from the end of next week. Is that right? Yeah, from the 17th onwards. So yeah, it's kind of a really exciting time. I'm really happy to be in Bristol. But you've moved away, man. I was like, Josh,
it's not far for me to come back.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Are you going to be based out of the Bristol location, or are you going to be split between there and Leicester?
So I'm still going to be running clinic in Leicester, because that's kind of Leicester's where my heart is in a sense, and we've got a big community there and a big patient base and following there. We've got quite a few staff who are in. We've got a couple of staff in Bristol as well. So the facilities are going to be there full time. I'll be there on select days and things as well. But yeah, we've had the staff who have been pretty much 3 months in training in Leicester. So they've been coming up, they've been there the whole time, and they've kind of got a massive amount of exposure and stuff to what we do. Because even when we take on, so we've got Vance, who's he trained as an osteopath, so he's going to be running the centre in Bristol, and we also have Gulnaz as well, who she's trained as a nurse, but we've kind of broken them away from their disciplines a little bit, and kind of tried to break them into what we do. But even at that, what we do, I think. Sometimes I fail to realize how different it is from what people are used to in their normal practice, because we're so immersed in what we do. And we just take it for granted, that we think in the way that we do. But yeah, we've had to take, these guys through kind of quite a lot of training and stuff to get them to the level and to get them kind of aligned.
Crash course.
Yeah. Well, Vance trained with us back in 2013, actually, because obviously we provide the training on, the diploma program and things like that. So he trained with us quite a while back. So we reached out to him and we were like, okay, you're kind of local, do you want to join us? So we've got him on board as well. But yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to kind of how it's gonna pan out. I think we've got big plans for Bristol. I think this is the first of many clinics here in Bristol.
Yeah. I think you'll be a really good fit for them. So yeah, I can imagine a fairly rapid expansion once the word gets out. And anything I can do to help spread the word, just let me know, and I'll speak to people and stuff like that.
Awesome, man. Cool. All right. So it's a fasting day today, so I'm going to try and keep it. Oh wow, we've done. It's pretty much an hour.
Almost at an hour. I need to finish at 7:30 as well. Anyway, so
I was just thinking. Wow, it was like, yeah, I just checked. Yeah, it's almost an hour. Wow, man, time's flying. Okay. I've got a really interesting guy on who I'm going to bring on soon as well, who's going to be coming on to talk about nose to tail butchering and things like that as well. So yeah, make sure you watch out for that. When I was talking to him, I was like, man, you need to speak to Josh.
Yeah,
and
I'd love to get introduced to him and to I can't remember the name of the fellow.
Mosin. Yeah, do you know what? He's really relaxed. Like, you just literally got to give him a call, say, listen, I'm coming up. And do you know what he loves as well? He loves people to come and give him a hand, like literally like chopping wood and doing, like, if you want to go there and just like literally like go there for a workout, I'm telling you, it's like a proper functional day. Because yeah,
I will 100% do that. It sounds right up my street.
I'll drop you his details.
Okay,
all right, cool, man. Josh, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for taking the time, and I'll speak to you soon, okay?
Take care, man. See you.
Cheers.
Bye.